In today's video, we will be doing another 2024 election prediction between Joe Biden, the incumbent president, and Mike Pence, the former vice president of the United States. Now, why am I doing this prediction? Well, first off, Joe Biden announced his presidential election bid just around 3 days ago. So I think it would be interesting to see how he pairs up against every single potential Republican nominee, given that he is the incumbent and thus he is very much the presumptive Democratic nominee. And further, although Mike Pence is polling at a distant third, he is still doing relatively well compared to the other candidates who have no shot at winning. And although Mike Pence definitely will not be the Republican nominee, I still think that this matchup in theory could still happen because politics is ever evolving, and in fact he was the former vice president, giving him an edge over some of the other potential candidates. So I'm gonna get right started in today's video. Now, Joe Biden starts off with 181 electoral votes to Mike Pence at 122. Because Mike Pence is currently down on the electoral vote count, I will start by filling in his likely states. Now, first off, Alaska and South Carolina. Now, these two states should be considered likely states for Mike Pence. Again, these are going to be Republican states by around 12 or 13 points, so not as solid as some of the other safe Republican states, but still pretty solidly in the GOP category. Now, also as well, the states of Iowa, Ohio, these are going to be around 7-point states for Pence. Now, these are states that Trump may be able to do better in, and really Mike Pence doesn't have as much appeal in some of these Rust Belt areas, but I think these two states are too far gone by Democrats to point that whoever the Republicans nominate, they should still be able to win both of these states. Now for the state of Texas, I'm going to put it as likely because I think Mike Pence could do slightly better in some of the suburban areas. Now, I don't think he can do as well in some of the rural areas, but when everything is considered, I think he'll win the state by around 6 points. And Florida as well, this will be around a R+7 state. Now, 2020 and 2022, both of these elections have showed us that Florida is deeply in the Republican column. Trump overperformed expectations because he was expected to lose Florida, but he ended up winning by 3 points, a pretty substantial margin given how competitive the state previously was, and in fact in 2016 this was a very narrow state. Further, in 2022, Ron DeSantis won the governor's race by 17 points, a very significant margin, against, in fact, a former governor of the state of Florida. So that was really nice for the current governor of Florida right now, Ron DeSantis. And it really shows how bad Democrats are likely going to perform here in the presidential election matchup. Now for Joe Biden, his likely states: Colorado, New Mexico. Now these are typically generic likely blue states. Colorado went for Biden by around 13 points, New Mexico by 11. I expect these states to be around D+10 for Joe Biden. I also think Virginia as well, 10 points for Joe Biden in the last election, going to be somewhere in the ballpark of that. I think this will be a likely Democratic state. Now, as well as that, means at large should be a likely state for Joe Biden. I don't think that's very surprising. Biden did win the state by around 9 points in 2020. Thus, I'll put this in the likely blue column. And now these are the remaining states, and these are the states that elections are typically decided from. These are the swing states, and these states could really go either way. Now, some of these states are more competitive than the others. Let's start off by starting with the states of Nevada and Arizona, and gradually moving to the New England states. Now, first off is Nevada. Now, Nevada here, it is quite interesting. Biden won the state by 2.4 points in 2020, and Clinton also won the state by 2.4 points in 2016. Now, I think Democrats and Republicans both have a really good shot here. The state overall is trending slightly towards the Republicans. Clark County, which is the largest county by far in the state, trended towards the Republican Party in 2020, despite the national environment shifting towards the Democratic Party. So, at face value, the state is trending red, but at the end of the day, Democrats do typically have an edge in the state of Nevada, and I think Mike Pence isn't the candidate to flip the state of Nevada, so I'm gonna put this in a tilt Democratic column, though this could really go either way. Now for the state of Arizona. Now this state, it's a more moderate state. It's a state that John McCain was a senator from. This state has trended away from the GOP and towards the Democratic Party. Now, the state is really competitive. It could really go either way. I think as of right now, Mike Pence is narrowly favored in the state because, again, this is a relatively more moderate state, and Phoenix has a lot of the population, and I think Mike Pence could win over some of the suburban voters, especially suburban white women, and end up winning the state by an incredibly narrow amount. Now let's go to the state of North Carolina first. Now this is a state that Trump was able to carry in 2020, so that gives the Republicans a slight buff and advantage to start it from. Further, Biden's approval rating is not that great, especially in the state of North Carolina, where I just don't think Democrats are able to flip the state. Biden's approval rating with black voters is also not very great, considering how well he was able to perform with that group of voters in the presidential election back in 2020. And really, that really shows that I don't think Joe Biden's going to win the state of North Carolina. I think Mike Pence is going to win by around 4 points. Now the state of Minnesota. I'm going to put this in the lead blues category. I don't think that's too surprising. This is a state that's definitely going to vote blue. It voted blue for Walter Mondale, despite all the other 49 states voting for Ronald Reagan. And at the end of the day, I think Democrats are going to win the state of Minnesota. Now for the state of Maine 2nd District first, I'm going to put this in the lead Republican column. I don't think that's too surprising. Trump won the district by 9 points in 2016 and 7 points in 2020. And I think Nebraska 2nd, this is a very much suburban district. It is a district that moved away from the Republicans by a very significant margin in 2020, moved away from the Republicans by nearly 10 points. So I think this district, by all means, will go to Joe Biden. Now, I think Mike Pence is able to win the state of Georgia. Now, the reason being that he is a candidate that is more moderate and could appeal to voters in the Sun Belt, but not as much as to the Rust Belt. And also, the state is trending blue, but I think that he is able to do better in the suburban areas to counter some of those shifts and end up winning the state of Georgia. Now, New Hampshire here, this is going to be a lead state for Joe Biden. I don't think that is too surprising, given that Biden was able to win the state by about 7 points in 2020. Now, I think Michigan here, this will definitely be a state that Joe Biden ends up winning, because he was able to win the state by 3 points. This is probably the blue state out of the 3 Rust Belt states, or what is considered to be the blue wall that Democrats need to rely on for the next few presidential elections. Now, the state of Michigan here, there are many Republican trending areas, but there are still some Democratic trending areas, such as Grand Rapids, which is Kent County, and some of the areas like Oakland. So at the end of the day, I think Democrats are definitely favored in Michigan. Pennsylvania is the state where Joe Biden was born from, and I think at the end of the day, he should be able to win the state, because, again, though his approval rating is not great, Mike Pence just does not have the appeal someone like Donald Trump has in some of the Rust Belt states. And finally, to finish off today's video, the final deciding state will be the state of Wisconsin. Now, both parties can definitely win the state. Biden barely won the state in 2020. However, again, Mike Pence is a terrible Rust Belt candidate. I think he can do pretty well in the Sun Belt, but because he is not as Trumpian, and he may not have the working class support, at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is still narrowly going to win the state. Now, this is kind of the map what we would have expected to see somewhat close to the 2016 presidential election map. Nonetheless, I think this is 2 very different elections, and it just so happens that the map in this prediction was the prediction for the 2016 presidential election for many people. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.